Lecturing staff at Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen went on strike today in protest at compulsory redundancies. The university insists that the actions they've taken so far have been difficult but necessary in tough times, and they'll continue to make every effort to mitigate compulsory redundancies. But the teaching union, the EIS, says its members have been left with no other option but to withdraw their labour.
I have to say that strike action, and there's a fantastic turnout in today's strike, is the last resort for any trade union, okay? It's when nothing else works, when the employer's not listening, and when everything else we've tried has failed. And it's really the workers of Robert Gordon University taking it into their own hands, taking responsibility really for fighting for their jobs and also fighting for the quality of higher education here in Aberdeen.
Well, universities across Scotland are facing major financial difficulties. Dundee University has proposed losing around 700 jobs as it tries to tackle a £35 million black hole, while Edinburgh University has been looking to make cuts of £140 million. We reflected on the financial challenges with the education journalist James MacEnaney. So many Scottish universities are in trouble now. what has brought us to this point?
There are some individual things. The situation at Dundee, for example, you've got the new staff saying the old staff had misled them on the situation. Fair enough. But broadly speaking, I think what we're looking at here, there have been events that have led to increases in costs. There's been a financial crisis, there's been COVID, there's been the huge inflation that's come from that. But the most fundamental thing just now, I think when you speak to people in the sector, is foreign students. The decline in the number of foreign students coming to Scotland is a major, major problem, not just for individual institutions. It is a major problem for the entire funding model, to be honest, of higher education in Scotland. And
have the university been over-reliant on foreign students?
If there's been an over-reliance on foreign students, you actually probably can't just lay it at the door of individual universities. Now, they may well have been. Not every university is, to be fair, but some of them seem to be very, very, very highly dependent on foreign students. But actually, this is a question of the whole funding model for universities in Scotland. The national funding model built by the government basically depends upon the money coming in from foreign students.
Because they get charged bigger fees.
Massively bigger. So actually, it's probably not right to say, have Edinburgh or Dundee or Robert Gordon's been too dependent on foreign students. The question is, have we all been too dependent on foreign students? Because it is foreign students that are subsidising the sector, and frankly, it's foreign students that are paying for lots of Scottish students to go to university.
Can you understand where the universities are coming from in terms of these cost-cutting measures they're announcing?
You can understand certainly, the financial pressures that they're under are not in doubt. There have been, on most simple terms, if you're trying to run a university with all these buildings, look, how's your household heating bill compared to a few years ago? Like, there genuinely are costs that have come along, and I don't think it's reasonable to completely, as I say, blame the universities for this dependence on foreign students, because it's baked into the funding model that they don't get to choose. So they are, I think, within the rights to argue that some of this has kind of come from the environment around them, but I don't think many people are necessarily going to buy that. Absolutely everything here is things that are out with the control of individual universities, given the amount of money that they spend and given the structures they're supposed to have in place to protect that money. Yeah,
Dundee University is talking about possibly laying off 700 people, and the Education Secretary has asked Dundee University to think again today, because 700 jobs, that would have a massive effect on the local economy.
Yeah, think about what we're talking about in terms of, rightly, but I think we're talking about the impact of job losses in Grangemouth. We're talking about things like that and what that'll do.
Yeah.
Dundee University alone is more than that. The university sector will be orders of magnitude more by the end if this continues. So it is like there's an educational argument around all of this, but it's less my area, but there's also an economic argument around this. It's lots and lots of jobs, it's lots of connected jobs to all of that. It's a large, large part of Scotland's economy. It clearly is.
But do you think we have too many universities and too many courses?
I think that might become more of a conversation that comes up. The word that I keep expecting to see is rationalisation. The reason for that, I'm in a kind of funny situation. I taught in the college sector for 9 years. So that's what happened in the college sector. That's the word that I kept hearing when I went into it. The sector has been put through rationalisation. It meant, for example, cutting the number of colleges down and centralising things, and trying to make sure there was less duplication across the system. I think we might start to see conversations like that. I think we might start to see people asking that question. Well, I think Scotland's quite a small country. Are there too many unis? Should some of them merge? Are they doing too many of the same things? Could they share resources and all that?
Would that necessarily be a bad thing if there were less courses? If one had an excellent course, other people could go there? Would that be a problem?
I suppose it depends on your perspective. What you probably end up with going down that road, if it's always being driven by finances, then ultimately you end up in this kind of race to the bottom in a lot of places, and you'll end up losing a huge amount of resource, a huge amount of skill and talent, and a huge number of people as well. At the end of the day, if we talk about, let's say we'll take two universities that are maybe nearish together and we'll combine some of their back office functions. It's a nice way of saying we'll sack half of the people who work at those departments, across those two universities. So we should always be clear about that, I think, as well.
No, of course. All this crisis has led to talk of possibly reintroducing, or the suggestion that it might be a good idea to reintroduce tuition fees. Do you think that will ever go down that route? Because no political party wants to touch that.
No, the SNP aren't going to do it, so Labour can't do it, the Lib Dems can't be seen to do it. I don't think the chances of that are particularly high, but actually I think the thing I would tend to, I always do try and stress when anybody asks me about the tuition fees thing, you could make an argument to say that you think there should be tuition fees in Scotland, and there are some countries in Europe that do it, but there are other countries that choose not to, and it is a choice that can be made. What is important, I think, for people to understand is that even if we introduced tuition fees tomorrow and everybody was paying the universities what the government currently does to pay for the tuition of students, it still wouldn't be enough. The amount of money the government pays, think about it this way, the amount of money the government pays per head, per student, isn't actually covering the cost of those courses. And so there's like 6 different categories of courses that are all funded, and all 6 of them there's a big deficit.
So it wouldn't actually be the silver bullet then? No.
Well, it might be, but you'd be having to look and talk about what level of fees, and then that gets you into a situation, well, that's what England did, but English universities are also desperately struggling just now. So the £9,000 fees a year didn't solve it in England. Yeah. I don't see any good reason to assume that's going to be the solution here. I think it's a much more complex issue than saying throw tuition fees. Some people, that is going to be the line that they go for, but it's quite a simplistic approach.
I think we can both agree this is a very complex situation.
Yes.
James, thanks very much indeed for joining us this evening.